Greetings and welcome to Module 6 of Action Research. The final section of the Action Research proposal comes together this week and then begin crafting the posters for next week. This is when it all comes together. Pretty awesome. You may have noticed Module 7 opened with this one as well, so you should have access to the remainder of the course, although there is a slight possibility that there might be a minor delay in the Module 7 videos getting posted. If they're not there already, they will be very shortly. I think I've mentioned already by email, but I've had confirmation that all of your abstracts have been received on the created state end. Every one of you, that's awesome. You all have a academic conference forum proposal under review right now, which is great. They're all in the hopper for review and hopeful selection. Sure got my fingers crossed for everybody. At this point, you probably won't hear word about the results of that until after the course is over. So, because there's a February 25th deadline, that's almost the end of the course. So make sure you're keeping a close eye on that A-State email. I do believe I will be notified as well as the mentor. Although there was still that IT glitch, I only got one mentor email notification, and others I did not. But that's not anything to worry about. On the plus side, once the course is done, your poster will be ready, right? And if selected, you can certainly continue to make changes. Keep in touch with me by email about that. But otherwise, printing and laminating will get done on this end. Our department chair has graciously offered to get those posters printed out, and we have laminating services available. So it'll be great. So as you saw, the previous 2 weeks, very methodologically heavy, right? Very analysis heavy. I think this works out well in the middle of the course because methodology and analysis, as chapters or sections, but also as large collections of concepts, I think they go hand in hand, right? And they represent the meat of a study or of a proposal. And the introduction, the build up with the literature is a little bit more gradual, and then you hit the real important stuff. And now we're on the drawdown, right? Some research makes it to report and dissemination. Some doesn't, right? I think it's very important that good results of research make it out there, so they can do some good in the world, right? I had one study in particular years ago. It was a colossal dead end. On the flip side, my case study that you'll see in Module 7 along the poster and then the resulting paper, I pushed those out there as fast as I possibly could, mainly because I was in a mood. I wasn't doing enough research. I was getting frustrated. So it's like I gotta do a study. I was fortunate; it worked out, but some inquiry doesn't. My thinking is the more that we study types of reporting, the dissemination of results, the more we kind of think about that, we're mindful of it, right? It shouldn't affect the research that we do, but we shouldn't forget that that's the reason we do it, right? Is to get the information out there. So hopefully conversations this week about reporting research will feel familiar, will feel comfortable, but more importantly, I hope they'll feel natural. I hope this will seem like a natural thing to do, and I hope it'll feel natural writing Section 5. So a bit of a lighter reading load, I think. That'll let you devote energy to Section 5, your proposal, and wrapping it up, as well as your thoughts on the poster, right? So Chapter 6, the different strokes of forms of reporting. I thought this is pretty interesting, right? Academic reporting, public reporting, and professional organizational reporting. I think maybe more accurately, we have academic reporting, which would be scholarly research produced by professors, professional researchers, independent researchers, all right? Public reporting, which would probably be more political, more policy-based, and professional organizational reporting, which would be about guidance to a particular field, like the International Literacy Association or the National Council of Teachers of English, for example, and working with literacy. Sometimes those professional organizational reporting efforts butt up against the public or policy reporting, but sometimes academic does as well. These different forms of reporting have a little bit of push and shove, potentially, right? The written report section, I think you'll enjoy that section, and I think you'll see why it was probably my favorite. It was my favorite section in the chapter. On page 124, our author says, as Denzin 1997 suggests, we are not seeking definitive or objective accounts, but an evocative account that leads the reader to an empathetic understanding of the people's lived experience. I love this line because it's so important to remember that action research is all about some type of lived experience, either understanding one or making lived experience better on the other end. But I think we often think that lived experience is about adulthood and participation in an adult world, right? And that's not the case. Even if our kiddos are preschool age, right, they are still people with a lived experience, the lived experience of a preschooler, and which may very well be the setting of the action research, right? It matters. It matters. Lived experience is ageless. It knows no particular age, right? Narrative versus joint and collective accounts, page 125 to 128. Most interesting in there, I believe, ethnographies, which are a fascinating type of report. Constructing reports, 128 to 131. I think you might appreciate this on sort of a pre-write organizational setting direction kind of logic. It's a process, right? But writing formal reports, page 131 to 133. Does this look familiar? It should. The course is designed with this structure in mind, right? Presentations on 133 to 139. Variety, right? A variety of types of presentations. There's no one true way to present research. But the question is, where, for what purpose, right? I mean, for me, usually my work, the type of presentation is usually an individual session. Sometimes I've been a part of a roundtable session. Roundtable sessions are a lot of fun, actually. I really enjoy those. But usually, it feels kind of like teaching a class to me, doing an individual presentation session, right? I usually do maybe 3 presentations a year. I try to do a national and maybe 2 state level ones a year. That's kind of my bottom line that I like to kind of, because it keeps me moving, right? But where and for what purpose does our poster of the action research proposal fit? Page 138. That's the hint. And just when you thought you'd left that quilt behind from earlier, right? Performances on page 140. Think about what unique implications your action research proposal might have, and what might the quilt version of your action research be? In other words, if you weren't being asked by the professor of the course to craft sections 1 through 5 in this format, what would your quilt be? I think it's a fun question to ask, because it's forced me to ask myself when I think about my case study from last year that you'll see next in Module 7. What if I had produced those results differently, or reported them differently than a more traditional format? What would I have done? What would I have wanted? To be honest, I tell you what I want to do. I want to do I want to do an animated TED Talk, whiteboard animated. I don't have the artistic skill to draw the sketches in and stuff like that, but I would love to plan out something like that and draw it. And knowing me, I'd have to edit the audio track in on top of the video footage or the animation of it. But I would love to do that someday, personally. I don't think that's easy to do. If that was easy to do, everybody would do that, right? So hopefully that's given you some greater appreciation, but hopefully reaffirmed some natural thoughts you have about reporting research. What is scientifically based research? This is an interesting piece that I offer, because I think it underscores the importance of the reporting of research. In other words, if the reporting of research happens, it enters into the field and it becomes an available tool for us, right? And here you have a piece that's saying use the available tools. So in other words, get the work out there so that it can be an available tool, right? This may look like an easy read on the surface. It's got color and it's got images and large font. It's got a few nuggets in it that will make you pause and ponder, right? Everything about how it's packaged, the layout, the content, the appearance, it's all very intentional. Every step of the way, ask yourself how you feel about the content relative to the layout, right? I feel like my experience reading it is kind of being managed by the layout. I feel like it keeps me calm, it keeps me fascinated, it keeps me believing in the importance of science as I read it, which is really interesting. A great hook about Galileo and says true understanding requires some measure of science and the willingness to seek information when making decisions. It's a great anecdote, it's a great hook, great piece of science history, right? First page, effective teachers use scientific thinking in their classrooms all the time, and in short, teachers use the concepts of rigorous research and evaluation in profoundly practical ways. Oh, that profoundly practical ways, right? In other words, everything you do should be grounded in best practice, which we know is scientifically based in teaching, right? The federal perspective on scientifically based research, which was articulated in the No Child Left Behind legislation on page 2. I do not know if that was struck from any reauthorizations. Remember, No Child Left Behind was the new name for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is renewed. It's one of those continuing pieces of legislation that gets renewed, right? But we just called it No Child Left Behind in that particular year, and there was that definition of what scientifically based research and education is that was attached to that. Page 3, peer review. It's the baseline of quality control, right? Not all journals are peer-reviewed. It's very important to understand the impact of that difference and know it when you enter a journal to look at research reports, right? Sports fans, for those keeping track, that's Io, one of the Galilean moons of Jupiter, on that background image on page 3. Love it. I'm a space buff, by the way. Replication to consensus on page 4. Imagine someone else replicating your action research study. Imagine the establishment of a consensus of opinion among colleagues at the local level or colleagues scattered far and wide. What would that be like, right? That's when research gets big, right? That's when it enters public opinion. The sort of, not the court of public opinion, but the court of public evaluation. It's called that. Here's where this piece gets really intriguing. Case studies, page 5, right? This is a fascinating portion. Case studies, in many ways, case studies will never fully satisfy the hard sciences, right? For an appropriate reason, page 5, case studies lack the comparative information needed to determine cause-effect relationships, but they can point researchers to variables that deserve further study and help generate hypotheses. This is where I have a bit of a problem with that, because I do not believe that the purpose of a case study is to form a hypothesis for actual research. Case study methodology is research methodology, right? I do agree case studies lack the statistical support for cause-effect relationships, but that's not the point of a case study. A case study fundamentally is to further our understanding of a phenomenon within its context. In other words, statistical analysis can answer, is this anything? A case study can answer, what is this, or why might this matter, right? Pages 6 through 7 should make it clear that this is a short piece about advocating for correlational studies, but more so experimental research. I think the narrative really carries that tone, right? The piece claims, understanding the role of experimental research can prepare teachers to interpret research better, decide what and how to teach, and make legitimate, defendable statements about the impact of their instructional choices. So they're clearly pointing us in a direction of what type of research is best for education. The summary section, nice conclusion on page 9. Okay, so as with the previous 4 modules, I'll have an additional video devoted to section 5 of the action research proposal, our final section, right? I hope you feel the final section writes itself quickly. It should. I hope it proves to be the summary and final thoughts, implications that your proposal deserves. The additional video with our final module, which again might might have a few days until it pops in. Hopefully it's there. We'll discuss the poster and using the poster template in more detail and really transplanting your materials from the sections into the poster template itself, which of course is a giant PowerPoint slide. So make sure you keep reaching out with your questions as we hit the final stretch. Wolves up, and we'll see you in the next and final module.